So as Jim mentioned, I have this series called Bespoke Books, and I make these little books by hand. I stitch them together by hand, and then I fill them by hand in the days leading up to a reading. So every time I perform, I have like a raw, brand new text that I've never read before, that nobody's ever heard before, that's just for that night. And written by hand in a single draft. Tonight, as it happens, I'm doing 2 readings in Dublin, because I'm doing Circle tomorrow night, because they found out I was in town. They were nice enough to invite me in. So I wrote, over the last week, I wrote 2 of these. And I had not decided which one I was going to read on which night. So, one of these books is about love, and one of them is about war.
Love!
I'm going to let you guys decide which one you want to hear.
War!
Wait, let's do it by applause. Okay, so first, who wants love? Okay, now who wants war? Oh, shit. Okay, so there were some very enthusiastic supporters of war, which is frankly a little bit concerning. But I think love had a little bit more applause. For those of you who are in the war camp, what this means is I will be reading the war book tomorrow night at circle sessions. So if you really want to hear it as loud as you were screaming, you can come hear it tomorrow night. But it sounds like tonight you're going to get some love. I'm going to open this. You guys are about to be the first and last people ever hear this thing, probably. All right, here we go. This is called "What Can I Say About Love?" Somebody stop me. No, really, please, I don't want to do this. I can't believe it happened so soon. But here I am, lying on the floor again, waking up from another stupid argument with the sky. I think I'm going to remember 2023 as the year that I stopped believing in love. It started last January with the death of my mother, who was surely the person who loved me the most. Then in April, the month of my birthday, I was left by the person I'd been seeing for 7 years, in whom I had invested my redemptive hopes for the future, around whom I had wrapped the tendrils of all my most romantic narrative, because, well, from what I understand, she basically met another guy at a party. After that, I spent roughly 6 months rolling around in the dark, crying along with dramatic pop music, explaining to my friends how it was all over for me now. How my heart was broken forever. Writing eulogies for myself in which I mentioned the cruelty of the moon. And I haven't even gotten to the embarrassing part, which is that in the fall, I somehow let it happen to me again. I let my guard down for 1 second around someone else who was sad like me. And suddenly, we were texting all night, then we were walking all night, then we were holding hands all night, and just when my heart overflowed its better judgment, went soupy on me and tried to convince me that the sun was finally peeking through my clouds, she vanished. The weather turned cold, and so did she, and I went reeling back into my darkness, my self-pity, my distrust of the outdoors. How stupid could I be? I thought for weeks and weeks on end. What kind of absolute fool does it take to get their heart broken twice in the same calendar year. It's like having 2 skydiving accidents. So I was back on my full-time grieving shit for most of December, and when I finally pulled my head out from under the covers, right around New Year's Eve, I said to myself, enough. I can't go on like this. It's absurd. I am not carrying all this with me into next year. So it's going to have to be my turn to say to the whole damned concept of love, love, I am breaking up with you. Listen, it's not you, it's me. I'm just not in that place right now. You deserve somebody better, etc., etc., etc. And if pushed for more honesty, more closure, I'll say what I really mean, which is, love, you horrific demon, you are the worst fucking drug I've ever been on. Man, to think with that first woman, the one I was seeing for all those years, how I tumbled so totally ass over head into this whole deep philosophical trip about how the twinkles in our eyes represented the mutual recognition of ancient atoms who had been unknowingly searching for each other for millions of years, compelled by a directive beyond their understanding to unite and forge molecules, that in the act of our lovemaking we were incarnating the divine spark of creation itself, merging our bodies into a fountain of new life force and erupting in the defiance of all death, literally generating the light of humanity that bears an ultimate responsibility to raise its middle finger at the ever-swallowing dark of the cosmos. And I was writing her whole books of this stuff. So can you imagine when a feeling like that turns out to not be mutual, how epically creepy it instantly becomes? It's like some intergalactic eternity-level stalker shit. Like some burn all my notebooks type shit. All this is to say that when I met the other girl in the fall, I was actually really being careful. Trying not to hope anything or read into anything. And she was low-key too, so we took things really slow. We were hanging out for weeks without even kissing. I honestly didn't even think it was leading anywhere, except that we kept having these silly, tender, dreamy moments when we'd both laugh. Then we'd make eye contact for a charged instant. Then we'd both laugh again. And I guess somewhere deep under the surface, my legs were slipping out from beneath me. And then one night we kind of took it up a notch. And later, when we were texting, I was so happy that I got out my guitar and wrote her a song. And then I was so dumb that I told her I'd written her a song. And she was like, whoa, what? Skirt, screech, gone. And I was like, hey, what happened? How did I misread this? What was I supposed to do differently? Why am I such an unlovable, worthless piece of shit? But she was already no longer interested, so I was suddenly up all night, every night, alone, trying to make sense of it, with the algorithms reading my keystrokes, YouTube hitting me with every song that makes me cry, while TikTok bombarded me with bad relationship advice from bubblegum rappers, until I was just getting whipped around in a blender where love was nothing more than one more bad idea getting torn to shreds by a bunch of other bad ideas, and all I could do was try to micro-analyze the shreds of bad thinking that seemed to line up the most with my own. I grabbed every little torn bit of blame and self-loathing, every scrap of pop psychology and sappy sentiment, and scoured them for clues, trying to trace the origins of my problems. Like, where did I first get the idea that love was me feeling an overwhelming, hyper-romanticized attraction to someone, and them feeling a little less into it, but me heroically imploring and convincing them with legendary outpourings of poetic entreatment until they gave in and indulged me in a performative relationship that they never really wanted but agreed to just because they had their own reasons to feel unsure about rejecting such a rare amount of attention. Is that Keats? Or the idea that love is me trying to make someone need me, then getting validation by fulfilling that need, thus placing the responsibility for my fragile self-worth into someone else's hands. My parents, maybe. And why am I so willing to be force-fed the notion that failed love is always the result of some online self-diagnostic mental health terminology, that one of us must be the narcissist, or the avoidant, or the anxious attacher, or the one who isn't doing the work, even though everyone I know feels lonely and every minute of it is work. Why am I comforted even momentarily by the idea that somebody must be wrong? That I should feel either guilty or aggrieved when it doesn't work out. Like it's a contest for the resource of affection and everyone is just keeping score to prove that they suffer slightly more pain than they inflict. Why am I so ready to hear only the part that I want to hear? The part that fits neatly into the narrative I'm trying to construct. Like when she said, wait, I haven't told you this part yet. Okay. It's time for me to make a big confession. This is where you all and I get uncomfortably intimate for a minute. The whole reason I'm actually here tonight, I really can't believe I'm about to say this. Back at the beginning of November, this girl who I was kinda, sorta, unofficially not even dating said, "Wouldn't it be amazing if you came up to see me when I'm in Ireland in a couple of months?" And I was like, yeah, totally. So I went home and wrote to every Irish person I could think of to ask if there were any readings coming up, so I wouldn't be flying here with nothing of my own to do. Then I made sure to reach out to people in several cities because she didn't know exactly where she was going to be, and I really didn't want it to seem like I was traveling all over Ireland for the sole purpose of saying hi to a girl that I'd held hands with a handful of times. But it turned out not to matter because it was only a week or so later when she disappeared on me. So I just forgot about the whole thing. Until December rolled around and people started answering all those emails. And suddenly I was planning a national tour. So I waited until I had a couple of dates locked in place and casually dropped her a line. "Hey, So it looks like we might be traveling in Ireland around the same time. And she had no interest whatsoever in seeing me, no matter when I came or where. So don't worry, she's not here. At first, I was crushed. But I reminded myself that I was still going to meet some great people up here, still going to see some dear friends and have a good time. And so I got myself on the plane, and then on the way up here, the funniest fucking thing happened. We flew right into that big storm. Extreme turbulence, plane jumping around in the air, lights flickering, people screaming, crying, puking, praying. 2 diversions, 2 failed approaches, and when we finally made an emergency landing at a closed airport in the wrong city, I was fully and thoroughly happy to be alive for the first time in months. All my little troubles of the heart just went away. The rain on my face felt like holy water, and suddenly the whole trip seemed blessed. I mean, okay, there was that part a couple of days later when she started texting me again, like, hey, how's it going so far? Where are you? And I was like, oh, I'm passing through your town soon. Maybe we could have lunch or something. And she was like, oh, actually, I'm not feeling so well. But hey, you know what? Forget all that. I am a new man. I'm happy to be alive. Ireland in January is fantastic. I've been showing myself around, seeing the sights. I've had them all to myself. Tonight I took myself out for a really nice dinner with dessert. Now I'm back at the small town hostel where I am the only guest. Okay, so yeah, I am alone, sitting here making snarky comments at the full moon through the window and trying not to check my phone. Instead, I am pushing the tip of my pen urgently into this paper, hoping that it will somehow puncture through into another dimension where someone might read, hear, care, relate, even if I know it won't be her or the one from before. Hell, maybe I'm just trying to reach myself, to remember that however much love sucks, it really is still the source of light, the only answer we have for death, the thing that reawakens us from hopelessness. At its best, it inspires us to do big, crazy, ridiculous, poetic things for each other. And at its worst, well, I'm sure I'm not done finding out. Knowing my humiliating track record, I'm guessing that 2024 will probably wind up being the year when I start believing in it again. Yes.